Well, good evening and welcome to another segment of COVID-19, Coffee with the Bishop. I'm so glad to come into your home, wherever you may be having me to come in at, with a big old smile on my face, because today is a great day to be alive. And let me tell you something, as long as your heart is right toward God, God is obligated to orchestrate every circumstance, situation, and event in your life to bring you into the knowledge of the people that you need to the company of the people you need to know, and those who are important for you to know, because this is a great time just for you. I want to encourage you to share this page with somebody right now before you go any further. Share the page, get a watch party going, because guess what? You're about to be blessed with two great men of God that's sharing with me today for COVID-19. You want to let them know that the Apostle Kenneth Law is going to be on with me, and also Bishop Anthony Gibson. Listen, from Sumter, South Carolina, and from Pooler, Georgia. I'm excited. So I want to give you a chance to go ahead and share this page with somebody. Tell them they need to join you right now. Facebook and YouTube Live. Don't miss this. Whatever you're doing, get in on it right now. It's a conversation you don't want to miss. It's a blessing to be on here with these great men of God. I'd like to say good evening to Apostle Kenneth Law from the Embassy Church right there in Pooler, Georgia. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Bishop. Thank you for having us on. I'm looking forward to having a great discussion this evening.
And then I have another buddy. Now this is going to be something with us, the three of us on here today. We only missing one, and he'll be with us sometime soon. Oh gosh, excuse me. Listen, Anthony Gibson, Bishop Anthony Gibson from Grace Cathedral, Sumter, South Carolina. Good evening, Bishop Gibson.
Good evening, man of God. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited about it.
I'm excited having you on. Let's just jump into some talking right now. Both of you are in other states, and we know that the COVID-19 is kind of rising in different areas. How is it doing where you are? Either one of you can go first, but somebody speak.
Well, here in Savannah, in the coastal area of Savannah, we have had a rise in our numbers across the state of Georgia. Actually, those numbers have been increasing, have probably increased more within the last few weeks than since the whole beginning of this has started. And so in Savannah, it's mandatory mask throughout the city of Savannah. It's optional throughout the county. But we're doing everything we can on this side to stay knowledgeable, stay safe, and also, flatten this curve out and get ahead of this thing on this side now.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm in South Carolina. I'm in the Midlands. And if you've been watching the news, then you know that South Carolina right now is the numbers are really, really high. We've seen a spike since Memorial Day weekend, and the numbers have not gone down. We are wearing mandatory masks now, and our hospitals are full. And, we're a small state, and our hospitals are not, big, but right now the numbers are really, really high. And so we're trying to stay safe, social distance, wear masks, and make sure that we take precaution to protect ourselves and others.
Well, we here in Pennsylvania are dealing with the same thing. We are wearing mandatory masks. We just opened the doors of our church on this Sunday past. We had a 9:30 service and a 10:50 service. Thank God it went well. And the people came out, we celebrated, and we went home, of course. But one of the things I'm watching is that although there are people who know that they're supposed to wear masks, we're also dealing with a lot of people who won't put their masks on. And we know that that can cause a threat. Your feelings on that, both of you?
Well, we see that, and while we know it's optional, but there's times when you have to sacrifice, how you feel about a thing for the corporate body, for everybody, for your friends, your neighbors, and even for people you don't know. And we're hoping that people will have the compassion and the humanity, but also have the foresight to realize if we don't do this now, this thing will continuously escalate, and it will get so beyond our ability to do anything about it, that it can really come through and wipe us out and change the whole trajectory of our communities in this world. And so I'm hoping and praying that people will begin to rethink their position, rethink their perspective about this, and let's do what we got to do in the short term, so that long term we have a better quality of life, and really begin to enjoy, going on vacation, seeing friends and families, and those things that we now miss so much. Perhaps we can just rethink it again and do what we need to do to help us all get over this, get past this, but also put an end to this. So my prayer is that the hearts of those in our community across the board will begin to change, and we will begin to operate more more wisely pertaining to this.
Hey, Marie, you want to? Oh.
Bishop Gibson.
But everything he just said, I'm in total agreement. I'm going to hit the gavel on that. Everything he just said summed it up for all of us. For me, honestly speaking, you're running into people who are asymptomatic and they don't have any symptoms and they're not wearing masks. And, a lot of young people are not wearing masks, and they're coming around parents and grandparents, and they're asymptomatic with no symptoms whatsoever, but they're passing it on to family members. And like Apostle Law just said, sometimes wearing a mask is not about you, it's about protecting others. In my own life, my mom is a heart transplant patient. And so with that being said, if I'm asymptomatic, I have to be very careful around her because she's vulnerable. So this is personal for me to make sure that when I bring her out, or she's around anybody, even when I go to her house to take her food and other things, I make sure that I'm covered in a mask to make sure that she's protected if I am carrying something. So I agree totally.
Okay. Now, the one thing I like that we talked about was that what we personally believe, but you said something that's very important about being someone, if you're around someone who has underlying sicknesses, some we know about, some we don't know about.
Yes, sir.
In our congregations, I had a couple of people tell me, why aren't we moving by faith? And that's why I want to talk today about this, because we are a faith community, and I know you to be great men of God. And if I ever have met people that had great faith, it's the two of you minus the one that we're waiting on to come. And I can't wait till Bishop Horton come. He's got faith beyond measures. But what I want to say here is that my prayer is, not my prayer, my thought is that how do we handle that? And I had to deal with this with someone telling me, well, if we had the faith that we claim we would have, why would we need to come in with masks? Why do we need to sit here in church with a mask on? If we're coming in the faith of God, aren't we doubting the power of God? What do you have to say to that? And I want to talk about that a little bit too.
I'm going to paraphrase when it talks about in Hebrews that one of the reasons that they did not go in is because they did not mix the word with faith. And there's times that when we get instruction, we're to operate wisely and mix it with faith. And when I get into my car, I put on my seatbelt and my faith. When I get on a plane, I put on my seatbelt, and my faith. I mix it. And so that in the spiritual realm, I'm pleasing God. And in the natural realm, I'm taking care of myself and taking care of my family and doing the things that I need to do. It's out of love that I ask, our congregants to put on masks and our leaders to put on masks. It's out of love and concern for our community. We don't want to continuously see our community limping through shortages, things are happening, food shortages, you go through the store, shelves are bare, it's so much stuff going on. So it's not about fear, but it is really about strategy. It's a strategy of how to conquer this disease. It's a strategy of that. We wear these masks and we pray and operate in social distancing. Then we can eradicate this under the blood of Jesus Christ. But it is a strategy. There's not fear. It is simply a wise strategy that we go about doing the things that we need to do and then encourage others to do so without trying to pin it all on God, when we all also have a responsibility to maintain our physical health and help maintain the public health around us and even in our congregants. And so I want us to understand that we too, along with the Lord, have a responsibility to strategically implement everything we need to do to ensure a safe worship environment, but also a safe living environment, personally and corporately.
Bishop Gibson.
Yes, sir. Well, again, I totally agree with Apostle Law. I've received the same questions you all have about if we have faith, why haven't we opened up the churches? And the reality is I want to go back to the book of Genesis real quick. And this is not a preaching segment, but just to build a point here. What happens to Noah when God tells him about a flood if he decides not to build a boat and do what's popular? He dies. His family dies. God builds an ark, tells Noah to build an ark to make sure that he and his family is protected and he and his family is covered. When Jesus is in the wilderness, the enemy says, jump down from here. Wouldn't God save you? And he says, I'm not going to tempt the Lord thy God. So I think sometimes, and one of the things that I want to say as pastors for us, you know, like you said earlier, Apostle Law, you, Dr. Pierman, are men of great faith. I've grown in my faith just hanging around the two of you. But one of the things that we have to realize is just because you have a certain level of faith, it doesn't mean that the people in your pews do. And so you might have enough faith to believe that God will keep you, but you cannot be ignorant to assume that everybody in your pews have the same level of faith. And so every man is dealt a measure. And it's I have an 8-year-old son. His name is Corbin. And if I am getting ready to run across the street without looking both ways, and he runs behind me because he saw me do it, his blood is on my hands because he followed me and watched me operate it careless. And because he followed suit, his life is cut short, even though mine might be spared. And the Bible says that we lead the sheep beside still waters. We try to steer them away from turbulence. And so I just believe that, you know, it's not a faith test. It's a test of wisdom. And so when you operate in wisdom, there's a spiritual side to us and there's a natural side to us. And so we have to make sure that we're balanced on both sides and that we're going to cover the sheep because they're vulnerable. I have seniors, I have over 100 seniors in my church, and they all let me know that they have conditions, underlying conditions. I got to make sure that I protect them at all costs, because I already know that there's a certain level of apprehension there. And I don't want them to have to come to worship and somebody's exposed. And instead of us having church, we having funeral.
That's right.
Bishop Pierman, may I add,
Yes.
piggyback on that?
Sure.
When Bishop Gibson was speaking, you know, I thought about when, you know, just to help us with this faith, the spiritual, this natural. One of the things when the Lord told them that death was about to pass over them, and he said, put the blood on the doorpost and the lintels. The key of it, you had to go in the house.
And stay there.
You had to stay in the house and in order for the blood to work.
Yeah.
And sometimes nobody tried God and stood outside while death was passing over.
Exactly.
That's not recorded. So there's a part that we play of obedience. That then when we do come under the blood, wear our mask or do whatever, we are protected, we are covered. But there is a responsibility that we have we have to do. And like I said, I don't remember reading anyone stood out there and say, well, we got faith. We just gonna trust when that death come over us, we're gonna be covered. He said, no, whoever's in the house, covered under the blood,
yes, sir,
I will pass over them, which means we have a responsibility by faith to follow instructions.
That's
and
it.
do what we need to do in order for this thing to pass over.
Yes, sir.
And then when we pass over, we can move forward. When it passes over, we can move forward. And that's not us being, none of us on here trying to be deep and spiritual, but that really is a practical thing. The blood worked because they came in the house.
Yeah.
They followed the precautions,
That's
they
it.
followed the steps. They ate, they ate the lamb, all of those things. And we have a responsibility that goes along with faith. But that's wisdom. It's strategy. It is an understanding that I have a responsibility on my part and those that I lead. Like he said, Bishop Gibson said, if I run across the street, I'm a grown man. I know I can dodge. I can get over there. I have the strength to get to the other side. But if I have an 8-year-old who does not have my measure
That's it. That's
of
it.
what I have, then he's not going to see the cars coming. He's not aware of all of the data that you need to be able to discern traffic. And then because I leaked out there blindly, of course, like he said, the blood is on our hands, and we love God and our people too much to be prideful and to have an ego for the sake of gathering.
That's it. That's good stuff.
Oh, it's more than good stuff. Let me tell you what I like about it. You told us that when they see the blood, the death angel would pass over the door, you had to have a stay-at-home in place mentality. I'm quite sure as they were waiting, they didn't want to stay in that house all that time. However, that brings me to my next point. Do you think, because we did not stay in long enough for some areas, I'm not sure about every area because I'm not known to know what is going on all over the country, but however, do you think that some of us, they lifted the stay-at-home order up too soon and put us back out to congregate amongst people and work?
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And we all know this, that America is not built to be shut down. All of us live at a high pace. Everybody's on the go. And we know that the economy took a major hit, being shut down for a few weeks, and businesses are still suffering, and many of them will close. A lot of them did not get money from the government through some of those programs, and they reopened the government because the powers that be felt like in order to save the economy, we should go ahead and reopen. But I really believe they opened too soon. And because people, especially Americans, it's been 4 months now, we're not used to being locked in the house. So people are coming out, whether it be necessary or it's just, I'm just tired of being in the house. And because they opened the government now, we're watching the numbers increase. And because of our rebellion, if I can use that word, now what could have been the curve being flattened is now being extended. So what many of us were going to go back in our churches the first week of July. And because we reopened now, we had to push those dates back a little bit further due to people and the government reopening and the numbers spiking. Where I live, South Carolina, Myrtle Beach is very popular. And Memorial Day weekend, the beaches were packed and the numbers increased. And even on the 4th of July, because the government reopened, you can go Google it. Our beaches were crowded with people. They couldn't get to Florida, so they all came to Myrtle Beach. And they said that people left Myrtle Beach and tested positive. And wherever they came from, people took the virus back to wherever they came from. And so it's causing this thing to be prolonged. So I do believe we opened too early.
Apostle Law?
I can completely agree with Bishop Gibson. And some of the things by us being on the coastal area and here in the Southeast region where tourism, nice weather, outdoor activities, a lot of things that people are accustomed to enjoying this time of year, cruises, and it's I think there's a line in the Black Panther where it says it's hard for a good man to be king. And what I took from it, that as a politician, sometimes you have to cater to those who finance your throne. And when you have to take care of those who gave you your crown, and usually the ones who give you your crown are business leaders and those who own salons and barbershops. A lot of people were concerned that they're trying to kill all the black folk with the salons and barbershops, but really a lot of those smaller shops and those salons were owned by others and owned by those that were in. I know here in this region, some of those that sit in government own some of these businesses and the gyms. And so there was a pro-business, they call it a pro-business type mindset when they really wanted the everything to open up because they personally were behind in rents, payrolls, taxes, whatever you may say. And so there was a pressure that they put on the kings to open back up, even though the kings may not have wanted to open back up, but there was a pressure put on them because of quote unquote pro-business and getting people back to work, but also people wanting to be served and people wanted their services. Not so much they were concerned about people working, they were concerned about their services. So there's a push to get what we think is called freedom. But now this thing has arrested us and has limited our mobility and has limited our ability to go on, like I said, vacations. People are normally traveling. And it's hard to travel with this dark cloud that you just bump into somebody that can jack your whole family up, for the next 6 months. So I do think we opened up a little too soon out of pressure and out of a press to get this capitalistic machine going back again, free enterprise. And we all understand it. We get it. We understand it. But I do believe we just kind of pulled, we went in a little too quickly, trying to recoup what was possibly lost in the first quarter of the year. And so when that didn't exactly happen, now there's a possibility that you can pretty much all gains can be washed out by this whole new wave that is happening. And so I definitely agree with Bishop Gibson, but definitely we did open up just a little too soon. We probably should have been on the downside of this now, not so much preparing for, it's almost like we went to halftime, went in the locker room and came back out and down 3 touchdowns. I'm like, wait a minute, what happened? So we got some work to do now. We gotta play harder. We gotta work harder now to shift this thing.
And that's very true. You said a couple of things. I love this, Ken. Listen, you said those who pay the kings, and I want to make sure the queens know it too, the kings and the queens, and put the pressure there, which is something that's a part of the process. And we need to make that known because in the church community, we often want to label everything, but we don't understand the process. That's why when people say, if I was in office and I was the mayor or I was the district leader or whoever you said you would like to be, you don't know what you would do because you're not in that seat. Let's just start right there.
Right.
Gave some of the politicians a little free ride, okay? Not that much, but just a little bit. But the other part of it is that when we say we open too soon, and it's true, we're in our area, our basically a lot of tourists come here. This is a time of people coming in. They spend money. They have all these resorts that are built up here, and they need those resorts to open so people can work. They can keep those places paid up because I know they got those big mortgages on them, whether they say it or not. But they need all that income to come in. The only thing I want to say to that is that when we are bringing people in and we're saying everything is all right, we're also putting our communities at a high risk of danger. And these who work these essential jobs have to go out. They're not able to work from home. They have to go out and do these particular jobs. And it's causing a rift within their families, a rift within themselves, because it is, I want to live, I want to be around for my children and my grandchildren, and yet I have to go out here and put my life on the line to serve. And you say service, to serve, and the repayment may be, I may very well lose my life. And as a church, what do we do about that? How do we encourage people? How do we keep them standing through this?
Okay. Well, I believe outside the spiritual aspect, we get it that we have to work. We have to provide for our families. And in case like this, we being essential, what you may not be essential to other people in society, but you are essential to your spouse, you are essential to your children, and you are essential to your overall household. And there's such a it's such a hard place for a person to be, where they have to make a decision between employment and living. And that's just, I think it's completely unfair to put people in that kind of position without uh, some kind of alternative, until this thing can, turn or shift, where a person doesn't have to worry about their household, doesn't have to worry about trying to make sure services are provided. While I do understand there's certain things you got to have manpower for. And so it's key that we have to help our people be encouraged, but also, provide dialogue and forums to help them be protected, do the things they need to do to protect themselves physically, also mentally and emotionally. This doesn't just take a toll on you financially, but these things take a toll on you mentally and emotionally. And they begin to break you down. They begin to create a hole in your soul about things, and creates an anxiety that our bodies are simply not designed to handle. No one's body is designed to handle this kind of anxiety, let alone any anxiety. So it is definitely key that we do have to encourage, but yet we also do have to work together and collaborate. How can we help these families? How can we help provide solutions that they may need going forward, whether it's governmental, whether it's grassroots? What do we need to do to help in a person not be in a place to have to decide between daycare and going to work? I really do think this is a great time for us as a community, and I mean overall as a community, to have to come together and collaborate neighborly to begin to help support one another. And in regards to knowing someone has to go to work to take care of their family, and maybe we can help provide resources that helps that single mother that has to decide with that daycare cost and feed and food and things of that nature. It is so much. When you peel off one part of the onion, there's another 20 layers that you have to peel off to help, where people are. And we as spiritual leaders, but also humans ourselves, have to be able to encourage and lead the way of encouragement to disrupt discouragement, but also provide some kind of relief, whether that's spiritually or in a communal way. We have to be able to surround them, those essential workers, and provide some relief from away from the anxiety of the decisions that they are literally forced to make to make a living.
Bishop?
Yes, sir. Well, again, Kenneth summed it up. What I was thinking about earlier at the end, he actually touched on what I wanted to say. I think as spiritual leaders right now, we're trying to pastor through a pandemic, and we're dealing with people that we cannot see in the pews anymore, but maybe on Facebook Live or conference call or Park and Praise or whatever we're doing right now. So as we have to make sure that we seek God for a relevant, timely word to help people navigate through the chaos and the stress of this pandemic. But I think also we have to make sure that we begin to network in a greater way. If we have access to information, or we know someone that has access that can help them with their businesses or help them in their families or whatever, we have to be able to put the information out there. I think not only are we preaching, but we got to make sure that our churches become a bridge in this season where we're networking people, and the spiritual community, the business community, and the essential workers and everybody, where we're all networking together. And if I know something that can help you with your business, you might own a hair salon and you have to work. Your shop was closed down for 3 months. Today, I was out and about, and a friend of mine who owns a salon right here in Sumter, she told me, because it's been closed so long, she's closing her business down now, and she's not going to reopen. And she just had surgery. And so she said the stress of everything has really weighed, very heavy on her. And so any information that I had today, I was willing to share in hopes that it might help save her business or help her have a smoother transition as she's closing out to where she's not underwater. If you think about it, over 40 million people since the pandemic have filed for unemployment, and people are out of work. And when those things happen, our churches, I wish that every church had the means to fix every issue naturally with helping people get through it. But I think that all of us can do something, and we have to do our part, whatever that is, to help lighten the load. And I believe as we do that, God will continue to help us navigate through this crazy time, because the truth is we can't get through this pandemic without each other. You're not one person on an island right now. We all need each other to get through this. And so even with everything going on right now in our country, we have to make sure as a church that we keep everybody together. And thinking about this, in the later books of Acts, when the apostle he was actually on the ship, and they got the word from the angel that they were going to make it to the other side, but the boat was going to be destroyed. And they came in through broken pieces. He said, but none of you will be lost. And I think for us right now, we have to make sure that we try to keep the people together and make sure that they understand, I don't care what color you are right now. It's about making sure that we all network, because at the end of the day, we all need each other. And so for me, the answer is unity.
Bishop Pierman.
Unity. Go ahead, brother.
Bishop, may I say something with
sir.
Bishop Gibson? A few years ago, the Lord showed me something. I was studying something, and I noticed that people move to communities based on school systems and things of that nature, which means that those school systems or those neighborhoods are amenities to the community. They provide an amenity. And so the Lord began to put in my spirit that the church has to now become an amenity to the community. It can't just be our clubhouse and we do our shout and pray. It just can't be where we kick it for a couple hours and do our thing. We have to be an amenity to the community, because we're here. There's supposed to be hope. Because we're here, there's supposed to be a tomorrow. And because we're here, there's supposed to be a representation that when they see the Embassy Church, without a shadow of doubt, they know God is in this community. And this is a time where the church has to become an amenity to the community. It has to provide things that make people look and say, whether I'm saved or not, I want to be a part of that. Yeah. Whether I'm black or white, I want to be a part of that. Because we have been forced to reimagine church. We have been forced to reimagine leadership, reimagine ministry. And it's actually exciting to know that there's a whole new revelation and a whole new blueprint that the Lord is now downloading to those that will listen and allow themselves to be an amenity and allow yourself to collaborate. We just one of my leaders met with the police department this morning, and they're excited that we're going to be passing out food this weekend. They're excited. So by them knowing we're doing something in the community, they want to provide traffic support. Well, when you begin to work and collaborate with the first responders, and you begin to collaborate when trouble and crisis arises, you have allies, whether they know your kingdom or not. You need allies. And to be able to eradicate this thing, you must collaborate, and you need help. So now the Chamber of Commerce found out what we're doing, so they want to be involved. It's not so much about us now doing 3-night revivals. It's about being an amenity. We have to be an amenity to the community. We don't preach ourselves down. Now we must stand in the kingdom and now stand and reach out into the world. And that's what's necessary now. So we all must collaborate locally, regionally, and globally.
Yeah, and just to add to what you just said, when the famine came, Joseph was in a position where he had so much resources that everybody had to come to him to get what they need. And that was a perfect picture of the concept of the kingdom. But we must have the mindset that no matter what you have, you can still do something.
Yes.
And so, we brag about, the prophecy that he interpreted, but when the famine came, his family and everybody had to come back through him to be sustained in that tough time. And I believe that's a perfect picture of what the church should be right now in this season. It's not just our word, but it's also making sure that we're providing in our regions and in our area for the people who are in need.
Yes. And also connecting to those in your community. As I always say here, in our community, we have great leaders of faith who are doing some great things. And as we are connecting, because we haven't totally connected yet, but as we are connecting, we're watching some great things happen. And having the mindset of whatever I have to offer, let me offer it. It may not be as big as the person next to you or as small as the one around the corner from you, but what you add to the pot makes the difference. Apostle Law, you made it clear to us, we have to be an amenity in our community and bring forth a light of hope. That's what we're there for, to be a light of hope, a source of strength and information. If we don't have it, like many churches don't have money to give out, but they can be information to money. I heard someone say to me, the church is not doing anything. They don't never do nothing. Well, there are some that do food programs. There are some that do clothing. Others that we have the resources to say we can give out so much money to a degree. Others will be able to lead you to where you need to get some financial help from. But what we need to do is come together within, like as Bishop Gibson said, within our community, our business community, our mental health community. That's very important. There are people who are suffering. I mean, they're going through, and they are so afraid to even leave their house. Okay,
Yeah.
That's a part of our burden. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, that's a part of our burden. How do we reach those people? How do we reach into their houses without going into their houses, as they say, and get them the help that they need to have? Because as leaders, we have to be able to tell them it's all right to seek mental health.
Yeah.
All right. I know you're gonna turn it over to Law. Go on, Law.
I'm the youngest out here. I'm the youngest.
No, I
go first.
I mean, and there's nothing against preaching and revivals. We know that we need to preach word. But we also have to begin to, people don't care about your Jesus when you don't care about them being hungry. And there's times we have to become and meet people and help people. This weekend we'll be giving out food right after service, but there's a line that we're going to put that people can receive prayer while they're in the car, and hopefully take some hope home with them and meet some people that even though they have a mask on their face, but there's love in their eyes. And there's times that people have been in the house and been around people who they're really struggling, and they need to see some people who we're in this with you, but we have a joy, we have a peace, yet we have a struggle, but we're in this with you. And people need to be able to see that in the church. People need to see that in the kingdom, in the saints of God, but also to see, hey, not only am I praying for you, I'm going to help provide. It can't solve it all, but it can stop the bleeding a little bit for today until we can get to the place where, the bleeding stops. And I really, I want to get to a place where we can all begin to offer certain resources to people in our community to help deal with the anxieties, help deal with the stress levels of this, even pastors, and I want pastors, if anyone on here is a pastor, to hear all three of us. Please don't let other people inflict their values on you or what the church should be doing. Most people that are saying what the church should be doing truly have no concept of what the church is, its mission, nor its purpose. And so people want you to do this and that. Please don't fall under the pressure. If all you can do is reach out to your seniors and check on them and give them a call once or twice a week, then do so. You can do something, but do what God puts in your heart and do what God puts in your spirit, but not under pressure from anybody who doesn't even know exactly what you do in the first place. Don't take that on. Ask the Lord, Lord, what do I have? What's in what such as I have in my hand? What do I have? Silver and gold I have not. But what do I have in my hand right now? And the Lord show you, because what you have in your hand is just as good, if not better, than silver and gold. It can help a man stand on his feet. A hand from a man of God, a woman of God, can help lift the whole community up. So your hand is powerful enough to lift your community up, regardless of however God uses you to do that. So remain open to that. Don't take on that baggage. Don't take on that weight. Do what the Lord tells you to do and use what's in your hand.
All right, Gibson, you the youngest.
Yes, sir. Well, again, the question you asked, and I wanted to just hit this part first. You said that people are battling anxiety and really, really going through. I have a friend of mine who's a local she's a counselor here in the area, and she has over 20 plus years of experience. And she said that in the church and out of the church in over 20 years, she's never seen the numbers as high as she's seen it over the last 4 or 5 months, with anxiety, with depression, suicidal thoughts, and suicidal attempts. The sad part about the church in a lot of cases is that we believe that, well, if we just go ahead and slap some oil on you, on your forehead, all is well, you're good to go. And sometimes we don't believe in counseling. And with that being said, the Bible says that there's safety in the multitude of counsel. And so we have to be able to connect people sometimes to some counselors to get them the mental help that they need to deal with the anxiety and stress of COVID-19. Also, I believe that as pastors, while we're trying to pastor through a pandemic, like for myself, we've been doing Facebook Live and YouTube on Sundays and also on Wednesdays. But a lot of my seniors, guess what? They're not on Facebook and they don't know how to use Facebook. So what we did was we started a prayer call, and many of my team and my staff, I thank God for a great team and great staff. They've been taking food and prayer and all that to our seniors, and everybody over the age of 60, they've been making sure that on a monthly basis, they've been reaching out to them and checking on them. So I think sometimes we got to ask ourselves a question when it comes down to serving people. Is it impossible or is it just inconvenient? And I think sometimes we don't want to be inconvenienced, but I believe that this is a time where we must go the extra mile and reach the people and just, sometimes bend over backwards, because every soul matters. And so any way that we can reach them, to help them, to not only pray with them, but also getting them the help that they need. The counselor, I had her to talk to a few people because they were really, really battling some things, and they're saved, they love God, but anxiety had gripped them. And she had a conference call with them over the phone, and things went well, and people are back on track. The same way you go to an optometrist for your eyes, a cardiologist for your heart, a podiatrist for your feet, you can go to a therapist for your mind to help you filter through some things. So I'm not against that. I believe if you need some help and your pastor can't help you, you go find you a good therapist that loves God but knows how to balance both worlds.
And I would like to say to that also, counseling is great, and especially when you know you need it. Don't be afraid. I also want to say to some pastors that may be viewing this later as well as now, what you've heard today, so you may say, oh my goodness, I could have done what they were saying. I just didn't do it right then. Don't beat yourself up, okay? Dealing with this, carrying a congregation and trying to keep everybody encouraged is not an easy job. To any leader that's out there, whether you're leading your family or you're leading a community or you're over an organization, it's not easy when you're bringing people with you. And so therefore, this conversation that we're having right now, this sharing that we're doing, is to inspire and to encourage you, to let you know that wherever you find, if you find something that you can use on it, pick it up and start working from there. You don't always have to recreate the wheel, grab a spoke from a wheel, and then start again. I'm excited about saying that. And then to also say that when we come together, and this is going to make, now these are real pastors. Now I'm going to watch this switch right here. Now, it's one thing, and we want to talk about all of this, because people play games. It's one thing when I deal with a person who says to me, you know, I'm really afraid of coming out because of the pandemic, and I don't really come out at all. If I go to the doctor and come back, that's it. I'm in the house. But then we got those who choose what they want to do. Choose, you know that choose word? Like, okay, you're making me say it. All right, so you know how we choose that we will go to certain functions and we won't go to others. And we need to be sure about what we're doing. You said, why would you bring this out? A very important place. When you're making a stand that you're standing for, I'm not doing certain things because of what is going on with the pandemic, then it's an all-around stand. It just doesn't pop up because you decided today to wash your clothes. Now watch these pastors come forward. Watch them. And so even when it comes to you being, this is to all of our faith community, you should join in when you have your Facebook or your YouTube live services, or when they have the call that you call in on. It doesn't hurt if you're not going out to begin with. You should always be on time and be on it. You should be the first one to support that vision of your house. And part of the vision is outreaching to you. That's why they're using Facebook, and they're using all the tools that's been given that they can through media. And it makes you responsible to need to come on. Okay, come on, preachers. I want to hear these pastors talk.
So you're starting trouble.
Well, I think, I'll remain pastoral in that I've come to this whole pandemic and certain crises that have arisen. It's kind of that scripture says, Lord, examine me and, examine my heart, see where I am, and this pandemic examined a lot of us. And it examined and is creating an examination where our faith is tapping on us saying, okay, where are you? Where do you stand? And our behaviors and our mindsets are actually being exposed. I don't think it's personal against the pastor. I think this is where some people have always been. Yes. And with the pandemic, you begin to see it. One thing I've taught on, and you all know, I taught on that orphan spirit, where you kind of have this immaturity spiritually that we are operating and we're attending church, but we're not growing. And an attendance does not equal growth at all. It does not equal maturity. And so I think where people are, because I see some people that, well, I got to go to Walmart, I go to Publix, that's essential. I get it, but yet you have this wall of fear when it comes down to coming to the church that's been sanitized, wiped down, stripped down. We done flipped over chairs and did everything. Now you got a fear about the church, but you have no problem walking in the midst of Walmartville, Coronaville, Corona Central, or any of these other places. You have no problem with the beach. You have no problem with these things. It is simply, as I was always taught, people simply do what they want to do and what they value. And when they don't, when it's beginning to show what people have valued and have not valued. And it's sad to say that there's some people that really have not really valued the church the way they thought, as much as they valued things that pertain to themselves while neglecting their spiritual growth, their emotional growth, the mental growth, and they thought they were fine. They really thought they were okay. I really think that people are just it's just not, and not everyone. There's some people that are, really are there with you come hell or high water. But I really believe that there's people heart. It's really shown that I just never valued this like that. I just didn't value it, and it's showing. You can't hide it now. Because there's no more church habits. A lot of our church habits got wiped out over the last few months. So there's no service to hide behind. There's no revival to hide behind. There's no leadership role to hide behind. It's simply, where do you stand in your faith? And I, like I said, I'm not speaking for everybody, but there's some people, and I'm just talking about one aspect of it, that there are some people that simply, they never valued this in the first place. And it's actually showing now. And that's why some of them got so much criticism about it. And because, truth be told, I never valued it in the first place. And I think that's something that's being shown now. I could be wrong, but I think I'm a little bit right about this, just a little bit.
Young man.
Well, Kenneth is dead on it. I want to say it this way. When you talk about people who choose to kind of lag behind during this pandemic, I think that over the last 4 months, many of us, what we've been exposed to, the people who died, this is not the time to play. This is not the time to be, I can take church or leave it. I'll do everything else because, right now with everything that's happening, all of us should take it seriously. I also believe that, people right now, as far as the mindset, where your treasure is, your heart will be also. That's not just your money, but that's just every part of your life. And I believe the people who really had an investment in expanding the kingdom before COVID-19 are still hanging on. But the people that really didn't invest that much, I'm praying for them that they will see that, you need to stay connected, because oftentimes it's the people that lag behind from the pack that suffer some of the greatest hits. This is not the time to be distant. If your pastor's on, if he's making every provision, if the church is spending resources to make sure that they have things set up to be online and to give you the word of God that way, don't look at the sacrifice and just say, I can take it or leave it. Understand that God is making a way for you to still hear the gospel. And it might not be your preference, but it has a purpose. You see, because our preference for all of us is to be back in the house of God, loving on the people of God and hugging on them and sharing the word of God and fellowshipping together. But right now, that's just not where we are. So it might not be your preference, because I had some people tell me, Bishop, I don't like the online thing. I'm ready to get back in the house of God. And I understand your plight, but understand that right now, it might not be your preference, but there is a purpose. And we need you to be willing to adapt to change, because all of us have to adapt to change, whether we like it or not, to get through this season. And the people that may say, you know what, I can go to Walmart, but I'm not going to go to church. When trouble hit, Walmart can't help you. You're going to need the church. When things happen, you're going to need the church. And just make sure that when your pastor, whether it be, whoever they are, support your local church, because when things happen, they're going to be there for you when nobody else is. And so I just think that, we, like Kenneth just said, we need to mature enough to understand that this is not the time for me to be the weakest link. I should be making sure that I'm doing my part to help advance the kingdom and make sure I'm supporting, because guess what? Man still cannot live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God. So I need to stay connected, because the power is in the unity of the saints. So we got to stay connected. I don't care what your issues are. stay close to the fire. Stay close to the man of God and woman of God, because there's a word there when they're assigned to your life that's going to keep you and cover you. And when they speak that blessing and they speak that protection, you're in on that. Make sure you stay connected to it, because it's going to help give you the faith you need to make it through this pandemic.
Well, I just got to do this one more thing. I also I also believe for those of us that are true leaders, whether we're leading organization, church, family, so forth and so on, this pandemic has taught us in the actions of others who we can depend on and where they can go in the next phase of what God is doing. Now, most pastors are visionaries. Most organizational leaders should have vision also. And in this pandemic, and I know I'm right when I pull on these hearts of these two great men, that there's constantly vision is being renewed. There's new things being added to the vision. There's a reshaping and reevaluation taking place. And there's another phase that's about to take place when we come out from this pandemic. And how people respond now is what will make the difference when we move out from this. Am I right about that, Kenneth Law?
You're definitely right, Bishop Spearman. He's coming soon. I think in the midst, I said that we must reimagine church. We must reimagine ministry. And I probably, this is my own statement, but pandemic ministry is so much harder than traditional ministry. So this whole pandemic ministry, we've had to dig deep, dig out, dig wide. It has brought out innovation in us all that we did not think was there. We didn't know. It has stretched our leadership. It's stretched our vision. It has given it more dimension. So when you reimagine, the next step, you now have to recontemplate what it is now and begin to rebuild according to what this is. The pandemic has totally changed trajectory, and people are going to remember who helped be a part of the change. People are going to remember the hope centers where hope was distributed from. They're going to remember the lighthouses in the community. And so any pastor that's listening to us, please know people will remember the hope centers. They're going to remember where the light came from, where they found salt, where they saw the city on the hill. They're going to remember. And so this is the time to reimagine, recontemplate, shift things, rethink things, deal with your hospitality, because they're coming and they're going to want more of the excellence that you have been walking in. The simplest things that you can do at this time is simply each day get better 1% at a time. Find a way in your ministry to get better. Don't bite off the whole piece. Just find a piece that you can get better at and begin to master that, and talk to your leaders. Let your leaders talk back to them, talk to you. Become one together. Collaborate with brothers and sisters, whether regionally, locally, or whatever the case is, and allow the Lord to help knit these collaborations. In the valley of the dry bones, all the bones were gathered in one place. And you know something? When the Lord began to speak and prophesy through the prophet, the bones started coming together. I want you to understand this. Great connections take place in the valley. Great connections take place during pandemics. Great connections will take place when all stuff is going on. You're going to find out who you can now connect to. And they're gathered and they're right there with you. So great things are happening in the midst of this darkness. As Isaiah 60 says, rise, shine, for your light has come and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. That even in the midst when darkness covers the land, it will not come upon you. And so I'm excited that God's glory is still on his church, still on his people. Even in the midst of a land filled with darkness, his light is still shining through us. That gives us all hope, and that helps us to keep reimagining and keep pushing and keep dreaming and keep casting vision and keep standing and pushing and advancing the kingdom of God in and through our lives personally and corporately.
Young man?
Well, I think that God has honestly Kenneth just spoke it. I mean, he covered everything. Dr. Pearman, to answer your question, I believe that when trials come, sometimes trials expose not who we say we are, but who we really are. And I think right now, based on this pandemic over the last 4 months, that we're really seeing, God has separated the wheat from the tare, even in our churches, the people that were just kind of, or who we thought was going to be with us, and they're kind of, falling back a little bit. And then we've seen some people now who's really stepped up because they wanted to make sure that the kingdom was being advanced. So I just believe that, with that being said, we got to love everybody. We got to pastor everybody. But I'm excited because, and when Kenneth was talking, what really, really crossed my mind was this. I think many of us are waiting on the pandemic to be over so we can go back to church as usual. But I don't think it's going to be the same. I think for many of us, especially many of you who've been pastoring online, and there's people who have never heard of you before, and now they are connected to your ministry. And you cannot go back to church as usual and forget about the people that God has assigned to you in this pandemic. So we have to figure out ways now to make sure. The Bible says, I have sheep who are not of this fold. We got to make sure that we stay connected to people who's been riding with us through this pandemic, people we would have never met before. I think our vision now has to expand beyond our four walls and your next building project and your next revival to now, how can I reach, further? How can God trust me to reach more people abroad from where I am? And I just really, really think that we're in a great season. And when we come out of this, we're going to be so much better because we're going to be able to reach people I know for us where we are right now, we've been trying our best to make some upgrades that when the people come back, we can better serve. Through this pandemic, we started something called e-membership and e-church and all of those things, but we would have never thought about it if we were not in the pandemic. So I believe that God is birthing our creativity. I believe he's given us strategy, and I believe that we're going to be able to reach more people. The kingdom will be advanced, but it's not going to look like what we had before. We have to be willing to accept the change. Things will not be the same. It will be different, but I believe we're going to be the better because of it.
And so do I. I know we're going to come to a close, and guess what? I have a surprise for you all. They didn't know this yet, but I'm going to share it with you. See, there's another area we wanted to cover, and because the church is dealing with so many different parts of the pandemic, from the part of COVID-19 to Black Lives Matter, to all of those things that come with it, even just the part of just dealing with school. I'm going to have these same two guys to come back, if they would, next week to be the guests here so we can complete some of this conversation. And I think it'd be wonderful to have them back on. And you all that's on here, if you think it would be great to have them back on next week, I need you to start putting your hashtags in, your thumbs up, your hearts. I need to see all that start happening. I'll be the first one. Let me start first. Hold on just a minute. I got to put mine in first. I'm going to put my little hashtags in here. And I think it'd be great to have them back on. As you know, I got to first figure out how to make it work. I found it. There I go. And so just go ahead and put, there you go. There's a lot of hashtags coming, young men, young men, young men. There they come, here they come, here they come, and some hearts are going up. So I know they wouldn't want to tell you no online. And so we need to talk about this more and cover some areas, because the church in this pandemic of COVID-19 has had to cover a slew of things that have been going on. And we need to take time to address some of those things. And we'll be back on next week. If they do say yes, they'll be back next week also. I want them to tell you more about themselves, where you can look them up and find them at. I'll start with the youngest first. No, let's start with Ken first. He keeps giving me Ken.
You know, look, I'm in South Carolina.
Well, you can find us out by the country road in a tent outside. No, you can find us on YouTube on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. The Embassy Church. We're also on Instagram. The Embassy Church Pooler, Georgia is our tagline on Instagram. The Embassy Church Pooler, Georgia. You can find me on Instagram at Kenneth K Law. You can do that, and also our website is www.theembassylife.org. Theembassylife.org. We have service. We also have Wednesdays. And we have corporate prayer on Monday nights that's streamed on YouTube at 7 from 7 to 8. That's streamed on YouTube. Hopefully, we will be back in the sanctuary in the next few weeks or so. I know the Lord has shared for us to come back, and He'll let me know exactly what does that look like. But we're here to serve. We're here to help, and all of us. I can probably speak for all of my brothers on here. Please, to any pastor, any leader, please don't try to do this by yourself. Reach out, say something to us so that we can help. We may not be able to solve it all, but together we can go before the Lord and work together and collaborate and help you. Don't carry all that burden by yourself. And so please reach out to any one of us, and we'll be more than happy to assist you and work with you and cover you, your spouse, your children, and make sure we all get to the other side of this. We're going to be okay. Even if it gets a little tougher, we're going to be okay. Let's stay together, stay in the house, and stay under the blood. Amen.
Amen. Bishop Gibson, we need for you to repeat your information again.
Yes, sir. Well, we have a Bible study on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock on Facebook Live and YouTube. On Sunday mornings at 10 o'clock, Facebook Live and YouTube. You can also find me, Anthony Gibson, on Facebook and also on Instagram. We have Thursday night prayer from 6 to 7. We will have the post up on our church's page on Thursday. So if you want to tune in for prayer, just like Kenneth Law, we're all going to reopen. But right now, we're not opening, at least for the next few weeks. We are making preparation to reopen in the near future. But, like he just said to all the pastors, we've been praying for every pastor that the Lord has called, praying for your strength and praying for you to be encouraged, and just know that God is for us, not against us. And God wants to see us succeed, and he loves us. He's for us. So just be encouraged and know that God is on our side. So I thank God for my brothers, because when things are hard, don't let anybody tell you, I don't care who they are, how anointed they think they are. We've never been through a pandemic before. All of us is taking this one day at a time. And so when I get overwhelmed, I'll pick up the phone and call Kenneth. I'll call Pearman or Law or Thornton to get some guidance and wisdom. And I thank God for the brotherhood and all of us, especially for the leaders. We're the brothers and sisters of Christ. So make sure that you reach out. You don't have to fight it by yourself.
Bishop Pearman.
Yes, sir.
May I say just a quick sentence here?
Sure. Talk about your book too.
To all of the pastors and leaders, but also to the body of Christ, I want to share this. And this is from my heart, and my brothers can attest to this. And I want you to, even if you got a hashtag this to yourself, and write this down. Don't stop dreaming. Regardless of what's going on, don't stop dreaming. God gave you a vision. He gave you a plan. He gave you an idea, and the pandemic can't stop it. So don't stop dreaming and working on what God says. This is not the end. It's a season. It's not the end. So please don't stop dreaming. And I just wanted to share that to everyone in here that just feels just kind of there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Let me tell you something. Your dream can get you through some of the most nightmarish times of your life. So hold on to your dreams. Hold on to your vision. Hold on to that word. Do not abandon the word that God gave you, regardless of what you see going on around you. It shall come to pass.
Ooh. Well, what a word we've gotten. How many words of encouragement we got has been much. And I want to encourage you that if you plan to attend the Reaching Out for Jesus Christian Center on Sunday, you need to call area code 570-599-6602, 599-6602, area code 570. You need to let us know what service you plan to attend, either the 9:30 a.m. service or the 10:50 a.m. service. And then you need to make sure you come, as you come around all of our churches, make sure you wear your gloves, have your hand sanitizer if you don't mind. Get ready to come and be ready to be blessed if you come into the services. But if you're joining online to any of us that's on here, and even the pastors that are in your community, especially in our community, join your pastor, support them, and be an encouragement to them by being there on time so they know that when this pandemic lifts, they can count on you to do even greater works with them as they walk outside again as a unit of oneness. Listen, I'm your host today, Bishop Kenneth L. Pierman, and I'm so glad you joined me. Come back next week at 7 p.m. for hopefully these two great men may be with me, that we can continue this conversation, and you have a blessed and prosperous day.